and welcome to yet another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes Reborn.com, with me as your host, Chris Thighs of Cobra McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to talk about the news that Hasbro have hired Furio Tedeschi to do production art for their new G.I. Joe toy line is Paddy, One Day I'll Marry Iko Uwais Lennon. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst.
He'd really break my heart.
He would. He would kick your heart into a million pieces. Earlier today, Hissank reported that artist Furio Tedeschi had been hired on by Hasbro to produce production artwork for their upcoming G.I. Joe toy line, and specifically production illustrations for G.I. Joe franchise. Tedeschi broke the news on his LinkedIn page, which also highlighted that he had started as a freelancer for Hasbro in September of this year. He is famous for his work on a number of films, including Bumblebee, A Quiet Place, Pacific Rim, and had previously done work for McFarlane Toys for several lines of action figures. This news confirms that we will be getting toys for the G.I. Joe brand very soon, and that we could possibly see our first glimpse of the new line as soon as New York Toy Fair next year in February. A number of big questions continue to hang over this news, of course. Will we be seeing a 6-inch line, and where does that leave the 4-inch figures? Paddy, first off, are you excited for Tedeschi's involvement here, and how do you think his style will translate into the visuals of a G.I. Joe line?
He's a really good artist. Having checked out one of his portfolios online earlier on today, he knows what he's doing.
I know, you only have to Google his name and they just like boom, there's like so many cool Pacific Rim designs and Transformer designs. He's very futuristic, very dark, like kind of dystopian looking kind of artist, isn't he? And he actually didn't, when you reported on the concept artist they hired for the movie, that guy had also worked at Pacific Rim and similar things as well, right? Yeah, totally. And his stuff was very futuristic as well. So I wonder if that's a teaser as to what we're going to see in the movie. In terms, you know, that it might be a little bit more futuristic than maybe we're used to, you know, in terms of the tech and so on. Yeah, that would be interesting, especially with this whole Snake Eyes or Ashikagi angle. Are they going futuristic Ninja Clan, or are they going traditional? Because the whole talk so far has been on a style of movie that is very much in keeping with the Hong Kong kung fu style movies of yesteryear. So, I mean, is it going to be visually futuristic, but have some sort of kind of like feel of those kind of old school movies, do you think? Well, G.I. Joe has always been kind of about 30 years ahead of actual military tech. Yeah. You know, the G.I. Joe team had jump jets back in 1982. Yeah. And they're still not a thing for the military, although the French are planning on rolling them out over the next couple of years. Yeah. Nutters. No, absolute nut jobs that they are. But they had that French Air Force pilot fly a rocket belt at earlier on this year. So cool. At one of their parades. So cool. And they were talking about how, well, this is going to be great because we can have guys flying around with assault rifles, hopping from building to building. adding a new terror to being involved in the war with the French. They'll give up after a couple of weeks anyway. So I think cheese-eating surrender monkeys. Exactly. So you don't need to fear a French rocket pack guy soon. But again, that's G.I. Joe having something 40 years ago. Grand spam. Sorry, carry on. You know, that is going to be possibly something that's rolled out by the military in the next 10 to 15 years. So, you know, G.I. Joe has always been ahead of the curve in terms of its military tech. Yeah. So coming away from the actual kind of visual aspect of what he kind of brings here, and kind of venturing into what Hasbro might be developing in terms of toys, do you see them venturing into the 6-inch arena with the Joe line this time? And where do you think that would leave the 4-inch figures and also collectors? I mean, as much as I'd like there to be a 4-inch line, I don't know that that's going to happen. The people that we knew who were big 4-inch guys have left. People like Mark Webber, people like Bobby Valla, Daryl DePriest, they were kind of carrying the flag 4-inch for the last few years. Yeah. They're not around anymore. So it makes me wonder whether there's someone internally there who would like to push that. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. I can definitely see a kind of a 6-inch line coming out, even at least for a few figures, aimed directly at collectors, even if it's only like a wave or two of figures. The problem, of course, is that movie toy lines now are usually very short things. They're only out for a couple of months. There was hardly any Bumblebee product at all. There's very little of it.
at all, really. You had a couple of Studio Series figures aimed at the collector end of it, but I didn't even see much stuff aimed at kids in the stores here. You know, so the Bumblebee toy line was very, very small, and it was mainly just a couple of figures thrown into the existing product lines.
Yeah.
And of course, G.I. Joe was different because there is no existing product line. But I would be surprised if we got more than a couple of waves of anything, really.
I could honestly see them doing a 6-inch line. Because obviously, if you look at how Hasbro are operating at the moment, you look at all the brands they've got currently, and you look at the kind of patterns that emerge. Now, they've looked at doing, they've done a lot of reissuing with like the Transformers line. They've done a lot of kind of retro kind of stuff. They're doing it with Star Wars now, like a retro collection. I can see, and this is just going by like a pattern that I'm seeing, I could see them returning to O-ring, or at least faux ring, shall we say. That kind of mimics the old school figures, like in a retro collection kind of vibe. That obviously would probably cover the 4-inch guys, and would, I suppose, leave them open to do the 6-inch stuff, which is, again, something they're doing for Power Rangers, for Marvel, for Star Wars, for pretty much everything you can think of. Obviously, it's slightly different with Transformers. You've got multiple different scales, but do you know what I mean? Like, I can see that happening for G.I. Joe.
Something similar to the Legacy collection they're doing for Power Rangers.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, okay, that would make sense to me. Yeah, I hope there's 4-inch, and I've got a Word document here full of what I'd do if I was given a 4-inch.
Okay, well, give us your breakdown then of what you would want to see in terms of the waves in relation to the Snake Eyes movie, but and also tying in with collector stuff.
Right, cracks knuckles again. So what I would love to do is, it would be something similar to what they did with Retaliation, which was use what they have, that's great, and just get it out there again. Yeah. With some bits of new tooling, new head sculpts, and so on. I'm biased because I really, really like that Retaliation toy line, and I'm I'm a modern era Joe collector, so I want more of that.
Yeah.
Now, realistically, what they release is probably going to be a 5PO Titan, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow figure, and a couple of Nerf guns. But, like, if I had my way, we get three or four waves of modern era. So I'm assuming that we would have, case assortments of 12, because that's what they did in Retaliation, and maybe 2 or 3 waves of that.
Yeah.
So I think for, your wave 1, I'm assuming Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow won't actually get their final costumes until like the last fight of the movie.
Yeah.
And you're going to see them hanging around in their training gear and so on for the first 2/3 of the movie. So I could probably see that you would do, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow in their kind of initial costumes, their training gear and so on.
Yep.
You need the villain in there, and that's Kenta, I think, is the villain.
Correct.
They're saying. And then, of course, you would need the Baroness.
Yes.
Try split down, a couple of good guys and a couple of bad guys. For wave 2, I would do Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow again, but with their kind of final costumes.
Yeah. In
the same way that Retaliation Wave 2 Snake Eyes was the movie accurate Snake Eyes.
Yes.
Do a movie accurate Snake Eyes in wave 2, which with a Henry Golding alternate head, and then the masked head.
Yeah.
And the same with Storm Shadow, get the actor's head, and then the masked head. Scarlet, since she's going to be, a proper actress, they've cast as her. Now, if you remember, there was talk that they would do an IDW Scarlet for that Revolution box set.
Yeah.
And then they went with Retaliation, Renegades Roadblock instead. I'd like to see them do that kind of IDW Scarlet design.
Yeah.
And get her released. It's one of the few things that's good about the Aubrey Sitterson run is that the IDW Scarlet design from that line.
Oh yeah, she was great. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I'd like to see if they did that with Samara Weaving's head. I think that'd be great. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And then the other wave 2 figure I figure would be a Troop Builder Arashikage Ninja. And if you remember, there was an unreleased Retaliation Mountain Ninja.
Yeah.
Never got released. He was on the cross cell in the packaging, but we never actually saw him. Just get that out there. It's existing, it's done up. You had product samples of it, so just, release it. And then, wave 3, we would have the female romantic league, Akita, who would just be a Jinx repaint with a new head. Yeah. Hardmaster with Iko Uwais head.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. And I just buy the entire case of just him. They should just do solid cases of Iko Uwais, if you ask me. And then what I would probably do is you do a classic outfit Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes in that third wave as well. Something similar to the Ultimate Snake Eyes, Ultimate Storm Shadow.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few years back, or you can just release those figures again. You know, it doesn't cost you anything.
Do you see them using a lot of existing tooling then?
Well, I think that's the only way they're going to, you know, they could make it and make it profitable is just use whatever, you know, because I don't see how much new tooling they're going to do for a toy line that's going to last maybe 3 or 4
Yeah,
waves.
just head sculpts, I suppose, right? Yeah.
Head sculpt, and that's all they did really with Retaliation was head sculpts. Like 90% of the figures were existing parts with new heads. And then wave 4, and because I'm insane, it would just be a troop builder wave of the Joe Trooper from Retaliation, the Cobra Trooper from the 30th, the Cobra Zombie Viper, and a bunch of Yakuza lads using that SDCC suited Destro figure, the Chris Eccleston one. So because you know there's rumored that there's Yakuza in the movie, so just do a bunch of Yakuza lads.
Hell, it's not even rumor anymore. I mean, they've cast them, they've shown them in the behind the scenes.
So if that doesn't happen, I'm just going to make them myself with Marauder Agent Ops and the new Japanese heads from the World War II MDF's Kickstarter. So I mean, Hasbro, if you want my money and you don't want me to give it to Marauder John, make Yakuza dudes, yeah?
Yeah, that's going to be amazing.
The other thing is, I honestly do think they've missed a trick in the last year or two about not doing any G.I. Joe exclusives for like SDCC.
Yeah, they have.
So I think for SDCC next year, they should do a Snake Eyes 3-pack, which is the original Snake Eyes, the Dom Moreno Snake Eyes, and then the Henry Golding Snake Eyes.
Nice. Yeah, like the history of kind of thing.
History of, yeah, the evolution of Snake Eyes. So, I mean, for the original Snake Eyes, you could use that the Pursuit of Cobra version that came with all the gear and the different heads that you could do the Commando or Ninja version. Put him in a pack with a Dom Moreno and Henry Golding in his costume from the movie as a 4-inch figure.
That'd be really cool.
And again, that would be mostly existing tooling as well. I think that would be a great STCC exclusive, especially since it'd be a few months before the movie. And if you want to build hype for the movie, that'd be a cool way of doing it. And then vehicles. And I was thinking about this because all the vehicles have been kind of done and done again. But I think you would have to put out a motorcycle because, we've had that motorcycle stunt footage where they're ripping off the motorcycle stunts from the Villainess, the Korean action movie from about 3 years ago that they also ripped off in John Wick 3, incidentally.
Yes, they did.
They just took it straight out and actually used the same stunt riders and everything and just told them, remake that thing you did in the Villainess, and we'll do it in John Wick. I also think they should probably get the Striker out there because the full Striker was only ever released in a 2-pack.
Yep.
So I think, get that out there in a different colour in a single box.
Yeah, make it accessible. Totally.
Yeah, get it out there in green like the original. The other thing was the Cobra helicopter. They're calling it the Aspid in the Real American Hero now. Repaint the Eagle Hawk and put the teeth stuff on the front of the Eagle Hawk.
That'd be pretty sexy. Yeah, like a bluey.
A blue Eagle Hawk. Why is that not been done already? Come on, guys.
A Bugle Hawk. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And then, as always, my standard request to Hasbro is get the goddamn Rhino out in another colour scheme, please.
Yeah, that is a bad boy, isn't it?
So that's what I would do with a Snake Eyes toy line, and it'll never happen because no one wants to do 4-inch toys anymore.
Also, you're not at Hasbro, which is a shame.
Also, I'm not at Hasbro, and nobody listens in Hasbro listens to the show anymore.
So true. Buddy, dude, that's a pretty impressive lineup of stuff. I, for one, would be into it. Again, I can see them going the completely different direction this time, and possibly even attacking the vintage guys with like a retro collection, and attacking the collector on the other side, the collector market with a 6-inch line as well. And then I could see the Snake Eyes movie line kind of being the in-between, because obviously I still feel like they would probably try and do 4-inch with the Snake Eyes stuff. So I still think that a lot of the things you've mentioned will probably end up on shelves. I think we'll get a small collection of 4-inch kind of in between the retro collection and the 6-inch line. I can see that happening, and I just feel really strongly this is what Hasbro are going to do, because it just seems to follow the pattern nice and clearly.
6 inches where they're going for collector stuff at the moment. And, there is a reasonable market at that. I don't know if there's a huge G.I. Joe focus market at 6-inch now is the only thing. Marvel collectors are used to Marvel Legends. It's been out there in some form or the other for like 20 years. And Power Rangers, well, I mean, they were basically 6-inch figures anyway back in the day.
I must say, though, the Power Rangers stuff looks amazing from Hasbro.
It's very impressive.
Looks gorgeous. I mean, I'm like looking at it thinking, am I going to have to start another collection here? Because I'm not even that into Power Rangers. But then when I see you know, some of the that first series vintage Power Rangers kind of like collection stuff, I'm like, oh god, I need to pick some of these up. But yeah, like I mean, it's up in the air. We don't know where it's going to go, but it's interesting. It's exciting, I suppose, at this stage, because at least we know something is coming.
And it's G.I. Joe stuff back in the shelves, and hopefully back in the shelves in places other than a single Walmart in Alberta, Canada, which is where G.I. Joe has been for the last 8 years.
They'll do it as a Toys R Us exclusive, and it'll only be in Canada and like in Malaysia,
Canada and Asia. Yeah. Like it would just be nice. Speaking as a European person who hasn't had G.I. Joe in the shelves since the first wave of Rise of Cobra.
Oh mate, those are the days.
And before that, we hadn't had it in 10 years before that. Like, you know, we're now 10 years with no G.I. Joe available at retail here in Europe. Wouldn't it be nice to get, you know, a couple of things out into the shelves where we can actually buy them again?
That's what we're saying, Hasbro. 2 figures, please. on a shelf in Smith's.
It's so funny because the corpse stuff here, or the core, whatever the hell you pronounce it in America, that stuff sells really well here.
Yeah.
Like Smith's distributed across Europe. They wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't selling.
No, you're right. I mean, I see it in like little like Toy Master stores in little villages and stuff like that. We saw the whole wave of the Jurassic Clash stuff where the figures are on the dinosaurs and stuff, and Kate and I were so tempted to pick all of it up in this one shot, because it would have stayed in the UK obviously just before we flew back, but we were like, oh my god, look at all, it's all here, and we saw it in there before we saw it in blooming Walmart at home.
Well, I mean, I walked into a Smith's in Galway. I was down in Cork a few weeks ago in South Ireland, and I walked into the Smith's there, and they had a wall of all the new corpse stuff, including new vehicles.
Wow.
The like
new
molds, new mold vehicle as well. They had this kind of this jet fighter thing that looks like a Messerschmitt ME2 from the 1940s. Yes. It's
amazing, that thing.
That thing was sitting there in a Smith's in Cork, and it's just a couple of weeks ago, and it's like that's new stuff.
It reminds me of that, like, was it Extreme or Sergeant Savage? It might have been Sergeant Savage, where they had that kind of like, like that kind of like an old,
it was like a Mustang,
Spitfire,
right?
Mustang kind of style. Yeah, totally. Yeah. They're doing some cool stuff, and they've managed to keep that brand going, where you thought it would fall down and just do kind of nothing, be like a bootleg Joe line. It's actually kind of grown into something really interesting, and the vehicles they make are brilliant.
Yeah, like 90% of it is repacked every year, or recolored or whatever. But like they get a couple of decent vehicles out every year. And looking at that jet and that weird futuristic helicopter they did, and I'm like, these are only €14.
Yeah.
Why is this?
Yeah.
So they're and I've really been tempted by them, and it's just like there's obviously a market there for it at the right price, Big time.
Anyway, Paddy, thanks for jumping on to discuss Furio Tedeschi and then go on a massive tangent towards Hasbro, the toy line, Core, Ireland, Bosnia, all that kind of stuff. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you again, mate. Thank you.
No bother at all. Chat to you soon.
That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Paddy Lennon. See you next time, and as always, full feckin' force.
Full feckin' force.
I'm so glad I continued recording. What's going on there? Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.